Whatever game you're playing, it won't work. You can't defeat me.
A commie and a homie and a send him home to mommy.
Hello and welcome back to a Squirrel Plays. Today we're going to be talking about character growth, specifically in TTRPGs, not so much in a writing sense, though we might dabble just a little bit in that. And I think what we'll do here is we'll approach it like we did in my HP video because that seemed to work well and I love me some sweet, sweet validation. So just like in that video, I will first tell you that I do not have the best solution for growing a TTRPG character, nor does anyone else despite what they may claim. Instead, we're going to dig into a few different ways you can grow a character in a TTRPG so you can decide what works best for you and your table. Or hey, if you're making your own system, maybe it'll help with that too. And since everybody loves lists and things, I'll try to group this into 3 different categories. The first will be growth through level ups, the second will be growth through special items, and the third will be narrative growth. And yes, you can intertwine all 3 of these together, and I'm willing to bet a lot of you have. You know why? Because you're a good GM, that's why. Look at that, validation is a 2-way street. The one we're probably the most familiar with is level ups, right? For those in the crowd that are video game players, then you are most definitely familiar with this one. I hate to say it's because it's easy, because that could be very misleading. Looking at something like Path of Exile, you can see a skill tree that's not so straightforward. When I say it's easy, I mean the idea of acquiring X amount of points or hitting a narrative point in the story, then progressing from level 1 to level 2. That's the easy part of the concept. You have stepping stones laid out before you. You go from level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and so on. In a game like D&D 5th edition, you know exactly what you'll be getting at each step. You know when you get your second attack or that one spell to annoy your GM with. Every class has their path laid out for them, and all you have to do is pick which one you want to be for that adventure. And for some, that can be kind of lame. It can be restricting. 5e does have the rule for multi-classing, which really opens up some combo options, but again, you're still picking mostly predetermined paths with a multiple choice option here and there. But that can be a good thing for people, especially newer players who don't know the ins and outs of whatever system you're using. Or if it's something with a lot of moving parts, like 5th edition, a pre-approved path of growth will, in theory anyway, keep the game from falling apart. There can be a sense of comfort and security there. One would think a predetermined build would not be broken, be it overpowered or underpowered. You, personally, do not have to worry about making a mistake with your build, which is probably why Path of Exile only lets you choose from specific characters at first before handing you the reins to a character that lets you explore that skill tree in whichever way you want. On the other hand, you have games like Skyrim that simply give you a point to spend at every level up. It's up to you to decide where to put that point. You can put those points into light armor and sneak to make a stealth archer build. You can invest into the magic skill trees for sneaky magic and to be able to summon a magical bow for a stealth archer build. You could put your points into the combat skill trees to make a stealth archer build. You could invest points into alchemy and enchanting so you can make a stealth archer build. We all know the meme, all roads lead to stealth archer, right? Every single time. But my point is, with that kind of freedom comes the potential to screw up, depending on how solid the game's design is. It also can lead to some serious min-maxing as well, and if that's the type of gameplay that you enjoy, then knock yourself out. Even with that approach in mind, though, I would consider the leveling up approach the most structured. More work on the game designer's end, less work on the GM's, which can be a wonderful thing. A lot of you know I got thrust into a GM position with no experience whatsoever. If the players had been depending on me to also give them mechanical growth in the game, I probably would have broke it. Instead, when we hit a good point in the story, I just had to say, you level up, and the goods rain down on them automatically. Although, I did totally give them all magical loot because I couldn't leave well enough alone. Who doesn't like a good magical item, right? Or if you're playing in a non-fantasy setting, a super high-tech item or an alien weapon. Something special that makes it unique and worth fighting for, and makes your character stronger in some shape or form. Now, I'm going to make a list of pros and cons here, but I realize that's kind of subjective, so we'll say it's what I consider to be pros and cons. Just work with me, all right? As much time as I spend in PowerPoint, you think I'd be a little better at this. First on the list is that special items can be whatever you want. This gives GMs unlimited room for creativity. Give a player the ability to fly, a shield that turns damage into healing, a sword that doubles as a flashlight in a dark dungeon, the ability to burp fireballs, an item that negates all fall damage. I have one of those built in. Whatever you can think of, you can make it happen. And it's not just up to the GM either. The players can have some input on how they'd like their characters to grow. Maybe growing wings and learning to fly really is something that's important to them and their people. And it'd be really important to me that you hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons, ho! Another cool thing is that growth through special items means it will be different every time you play. Well, I guess if you reuse the same items, it wouldn't be different each time, but you wouldn't do that. But you get my point. A fighter in 5e is always a fighter. He gets Action Surge at level 2 and a second attack at level 5 every single time you play him. With magical loot, those abilities and powers you get will vary with each adventure. And as mentioned with the wings earlier, magical can sometimes, not always, make your character grow more than just survivability. Those wings were important to that character. Maybe the grandest of warriors from his race grow wings. Wings are a sign of purity, a warrior chosen specifically by the gods or something. That not only gives the player the ability to make their character fly around as needed, but it pushed them forward narratively. It was an important milestone for them, and depending on what the people around this character know of his race and their wings, they might start treating him entirely different. But that's getting into narrative growth, so I'll just leave that there. My last one here on the pros list is that growth through magical loot allows the GM to balance a party mid-flight or while playing. If for some magical reason a player is really struggling to keep up with the others, either due to an imbalance in the game's core mechanics, the player being fairly new and unfamiliar how to take advantage of certain situations, or just having really bad luck, the GM can give them a little something to help even the odds where that character specifically is struggling. However, that does bring up a con. Growth through magical and special loot does require GM to consider balance. If you're not careful, you can accidentally overpower a player. Likewise, you can also run the risk of potentially making an item underwhelming, leaving a player to feel like they got the short end of the stick. And on the note of feeling like you got the short end of the stick, players may not know what to expect with this type of character growth. They potentially won't know when or how they're leveling, depending on how open the GM is with them. For some, that could make things a lot more interesting. For others, it might not be so great. It's also harder to level up the party simultaneously this way. Excalibur is cool and all, but unless the Lady of the Lake had some like-minded sisters, ain't but one of you getting a shiny new sword. You can find a bunch of magical loot at the bottom of the dungeon, but do you really want to put all that loot in one place? Though it might be fun to watch the players fight over who gets what. There's also this other point that I wasn't sure on which side to put, but that's the option of giving special loot some negative side effects. This can also help with balance and was something I was a big fan of when dishing out custom items and abilities in our 5e campaign. Growth isn't always a purely net positive. Sometimes it hurts to get where you are and leaves a mark, so to speak. In order to move forward, sometimes we have to leave something behind. There's your little life lesson for the day. Now, by this point, you've probably got a good idea of what narrative growth is. We even talked a bit about it in the previous section when I was talking about a character getting their wings. While that was technically getting magical loot or an upgrade handed out by the GM, it was still narrative related. And honestly, a lot of the pros and cons are the same as growth through magical items, so there's not much need in going over that again. Instead, I was trying to think of a good example to use. Getting Excalibur is a combination of narrative and magical loot. Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time was a tremendous moment in the storyline, but it was technically coupled with a new set of skills akin to a level up. Skyrim wasn't too bad of an example when you look at how people start referring to you as the Dragonborn, but technically that's after acquiring Dragon Souls and learning new shout abilities. Becoming the Thane of Whiterun wouldn't be a bad example. You acquire the new status and people recognize you as such. Grounded has an interesting moment in the story, and if you haven't played the game, consider this a spoiler warning, where you can choose to close up the leaking canister that makes a chunk of the map hazardous. If you decide to close it up, you can explore that part of the map freely without having to worry about the gas. The flip side of that is now mutated bugs will roam the entire rest of the yard instead of being contained to that one spot, which is kind of a neat example of the world changing due to your actions and choices. And according to this poll I did several months ago, that's what a lot of you like in a game. I can't believe y'all didn't pick the money option. My inner goblin is disappointed. And then I considered Fallout 4, where you're rebuilding the Minutemen. I just got word another settlement needs your help. You know the meme. But as you do that, the reputation of the Minutemen grows, as does yours, and that has an impact on the people in the world, and I think even more people start to join your cause. But of all these examples, I didn't feel like they were hitting the mark the way I wanted, and then I remembered good old Megaton from Fallout 3. For those of you that don't know, Megaton is a small city in the game that has a giant nuke sitting right in the middle of it that never went off. For whatever reason, they decided to build a city around it. It's been a while since I played the game. I forget why, but I'm sure there was a reason. But somewhere along your adventure, you are given the option to either disarm the nuke or detonate it from a safe distance, which is really interesting because Megaton is a fairly important location in that game. If I remember correctly, there's a few minor side quests you can do as well as a few significant ones. Plus, Moira Brown lives there, and I remember frequenting her shop quite a bit, as well as getting some lengthy quest lines from her and a lot of lore on that world. In other words, you're not potentially blowing away some insignificant town with little to no repercussions. So if you decide to blow it up, your reputation, boy, I'm killing it today. Your reputation drops horrendously, and the world generally sees you as a terrible person and reacts accordingly. Survivors of Megaton will also hunt you down as random encounters. On top of that, you miss out on the aforementioned side quests. And Moira Brown, she becomes a ghoul, though I think you have to have her questline already in progress for that to happen, but you can correct me in the comments if that's wrong. On the flip side, if you save the town, you get access to those quests. Moira Brown remains human, you get a good reputation, although nowhere near as strong as the negative one, and now mercenaries from the bad guy team randomly come after you. But the interesting part is that you don't really get any significant rewards one way or the other. There's not the temptation of blowing it up in order to get the mega ultra uber death sword of edginess. For the most part, it is just a choice you have to make. Do you want to be the good guy or the bad guy with the world reacting to your decision accordingly? Either way is narrative growth because unlike leveling up in the traditional sense or getting magical loot to increase your stats and abilities, narrative growth can go in different directions. Becoming a villain is still character growth, as is becoming a hero. Growth doesn't automatically mean morally good. Growth can also be struggling and bouncing between the two, with each decision made forming who that character really is. And if you're wondering whether or not I blew up Megaton, I saved my file before I had to make the decision and chose to disarm the bomb first. Then when Sheriff Cheapskate over here didn't give me beans for reward, remember, always pay your squirrels what they're owed. Hopefully you get the idea by now, and I should clarify that you don't have to nuke an entire town in order to grow a character narratively, but boy howdy, it sure can help. But anyway, now that we've nuked the neighborhood, let's get on to today's shoutout. And that would be another group shoutout. Seriously, I appreciate all of your kind words and feedback on the last video where I revealed my own little TTRPG system to the world. There were plenty of nut jokes, which was great. There were also ideas and suggestions, and it looks like some of you are even excited to try it out, so I very much look forward to hearing back from you on how your game went. You can either join the Discord and tell me all about it, or use my email on my YouTube page. Even those of you like Sylvan Smithy here who aren't into that type of game specifically, but still had words of encouragement. I'm proud of y'all. We're doing good things around here. And with that, I'm running away and climbing back up my tree, so tell me your preferred methods of growing your TTRPG characters, and what are some of your more interesting moments of growth? Did you fall to the dark side? Did you become king of the land? Did your level go over 9,000?